Oikos presents 15 Seconds of Strength.
Here we go. Steve's got a trunk full of groceries and no one to help him.
Oh, that's tough, Jim. Looks like a 5-trip load at least.
He grabs the first bag, the second. Bob, it looks like he's trying to do it all one trip. He shimmies the door open, steps over the dog, and he stumbles.
Oh, right into the kitchen without missing a beat. Jim, now that's a man who eats his protein-packed Oikos.
With 15 grams of complete protein in each cup, Oikos Triple Zero can help build strength for every day. Oikos, stronger makes everything better.
Hello and welcome back to the show. I am Patrick. I am here with Ben, but we don't matter today because we're also joined by our friend Katrin Davidsdottir. Hello, Katrin. How are you?
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, please, thank you for taking some time to chat with us. We thought it'd be fun to have you on. I don't even remember the last time you were on. You've been on a number of times, probably back in like the 2000, I'm going to guess, maybe like 18, 19 range, but it's been a while since we chatted. So you just announced at the end of last year that you were hanging up your, I don't even know, what do you call a CrossFit athlete when they hang, like cleat? It's not cleats. What do you do what do you hang up when you're done competing as a CrossFit athlete?
Hang up our trainers.
Your grips? Yeah, your trainers.
Grips.
Okay. Yeah. Either way, whatever you hung up, you hung it up in December. You announced you're no longer competing in the sport of CrossFit. So we thought it'd be fun to have you on, say hi, catch up with what's going on in your life, and also talk through some of maybe the big lessons that you learned as an athlete that you are going to do your best to take into life post competition, and see if we can't learn some of those lessons through you and with you. So I would love to know, just as an entry point to this conversation, how hard was it to decide, like, okay, now's the right time? You know, we had Cole, our friend Cole, on recently to sort of have a similar conversation about this is the right time for me to no longer compete in this sport. I'm just curious, how long a lead up was it for you to say, okay, this is going to be the year that I say, okay, I'm done?
Yeah, it was like both. Like initially you start asking the question, I was like, it was the easiest thing in the world, but I was skipping over a whole chapter where it really was an impossible decision for me. So in a perfect world, I wanted to compete the 24 season. That was what I was going for, and just something that I had in my head of like, I want to do. And immediately as I start training for the 24 season, I can't handle it. My back isn't handling it. It was worse than it had ever been. Ben probably knows more than anybody else that I always had trouble picking up off the floor. I always had pain going below parallel. But during those times, I could still always run, work on my fitness. I could always work on gymnastics. And this was the first year that even impact with running, I couldn't jump anymore. I couldn't do kipping movements. So if I extended my back, and I know what it takes for me to be proud at the end of a season, and I wasn't able to train that way. And so I was having a really tough internal conflict all year and leading into that season, just with knowing that there's no way I'm training like I need to be training. I don't know how I'm going to be proud at the end of the season, but I still could not pull out. I felt like I was giving up on myself. I'd never quit a season. I'd never not competing if I intended to. And so that decision was impossible for me and very hard mentally. And it actually kind of ended up just making the decision for me when I couldn't compete at semifinals, which was online. I couldn't do that. I'd gotten a cortisone shot in my back to try and get me through the season, and it did nothing, which my surgeon, who ended up in back surgery, was actually super excited about that. I was not at the time, but he was like, well, that's great news. Now we know it's not the joint, it's the disc, and this surgery is going to help you. So I ended up having surgery. But knowing that then, so that decision was hard, but then to actually retire, I am so happy with my career. I feel so fulfilled with it. I had so much fun with it. I feel very expressed. And as much as like, yeah, I can look back and like, am I gonna miss that? Like, yes, I will. It was my favorite thing in the world to do. And like to be out there competing, I just am very excited about what is to come, and we're now expecting our daughter. And so I know that I want that more, And I think that gives me like peace and confidence in saying that.
Kat, you said that you felt like your career was fulfilled and expressed. What do you mean by that?
I got to experience it all. I mean, the highest of the high. Like, we got to stand on the podium twice, and we got to chase it for how many years?
You're on the podium 3 times.
13 years or something that I competed.
3 times.
No, on the top of the podium. We're on the podium.
Okay.
4 times.
4 times for the podium? Yeah.
Yeah.
Top of the podium twice.
Yeah.
4 times total.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. COVID.
Yeah. 1, 1, 2, 3. And then, but like that whole pursuit of doing that, it shaped so much of who I am. You look at the life that I have, you guys became my family. Like, the Bergeons are my family. We were just talking about Harley Love. Like, she's like my youngest little sister. Some of my best friends that I've made are through this. I always feel like even mine and Brooke's connection was a very like mutual just approach to our sports and respect for each other as athletes. And that's kind of like how we have our connection. And yeah, I can also pinpoint so many hard things, but those hard things during my career also taught me so much. They showed me what I'm capable of working through. They showed me that, a hard time's not the end of the world. And just, I have so many great memories every Cape summer, every competition, like the adrenaline of it. I love being out there. I really, as an athlete, feel very fortunate that I did get to experience it all. Like, it didn't always go my way, but I was able to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish in the sport. I didn't get to compete that last year, but that kind of just is life in that sport. And I got to compete for so much longer than I ever thought I would. I remember when I took 1 semester off.
Right.
This is start of 2015. I took the semester off because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do in school. And I loved CrossFit and this and doing it. And that's when I kind of also accidentally moved in with the Bergerons. I just kept extending a training camp.
She came here to train with us and stay with us for like a week or a weekend, and just didn't leave for like 3 years. That's like not hyperbole. That's not exaggeration. That's like literally what happened. She's like, I think I'm just gonna stay. I'm gonna cancel my flight and not. Is it okay if I stay for a little bit longer?
I think the actual words were, I don't want to leave. You're like, well, stay. That's about it. So I was going to take 1 semester off. We ended up winning the games in 2015. That was a holy smokes moment of like, whoa, this is what happens if we put 100% into something. Not 90%, not 95%, not thinking about other things. Like, we just truly focused on what we were doing and just being the best me that I could be and competing. And it was a huge just eye-opener. And so I was like, well, let's keep doing that. And then I just kept doing that for another 10 years,
We talked a lot about when, especially in those early days, about what 100% looked like, what the process looked like, what that full commitment looked like. And we never really talked about the end thing, right? We never talked about the games. We never talked about winning the games. It was all about that focus on one day, one step, 1 minute at a time. But can you just give a little bit of, because I think it's really interesting, having seen it firsthand, I learned so much watching you do a Cat. What, like in your mind, what that 100%, not in your mind, just give an example of like what your days looked like, particularly in those early days, because I think it frames up really well what total commitment is. We say that for a champion, there is no balance. We talk about balance all the time on the show because it's what we want now. It's what you want now. But your life is totally different now as somebody in a really meaningful relationship and looking for balance with friends and family and a soon-to-be mom. But back then it wasn't that. It was laser focus. Can you just give a little insight into what that laser focus looked like?
Yeah. I loved that laser focus.
Yeah.
It was a time in my life. And Brooks was very, very similar in that way. We had a time in our life where we weren't chasing our relationship. We weren't chasing anything else. We were just chasing this goal that we had. And it was so, I really, truly loved it. Like, I loved showing up to the gym, especially in those early days. You always had like a couple of teams competing. We had athletes come in to train, so there was always a group training. And for some people, they don't handle that constant competition very well. I love training with people. It makes it so much easier for me. It makes it so much easier to push, to do the work. Doesn't seem so much like work. It was always fun for me to show up. And especially, I would say, if we think about that 2015 season, because you were saying we were never chasing that top of the podium. We were really just chasing, like, what could we do? Like, how good can we get? And honestly, I never wanted to, like, limit the top of the podium. Like, what if we can get better than that? Like, I never wanted to compare against somebody else. I just wanted to see how far I could get, like, how good can we get? And showing up like that year, it honestly had never crossed my mind that we would ever win the CrossFit Games. So it really was just like showing up and what can we do today? How good can I be in this workout? And you saw we were after a MetCon, we'd be sprawled out on the floor, leaving everything that we have for that MetCon. I wasn't thinking about what's next. I was just like, what can I do here and now? And then I'll trust I'll recover, and then I'll do that again next time. And it really was I don't think I fully comprehended like what you were talking about with full effort until you're actually in it. Because like, think about Blue Hills, for example. That's like a great example of that. Like, you start your first sprint and you do it in 42 seconds. You do another one and you get it in 43, and you do your third and your legs start locking up and it's suddenly 52 seconds, and you end and your last one is a minute. And it doesn't mean that that last one is a failure. That might be everything that you have in that moment, and just comparing against that and constantly questioning, like, was that my best? Was it not? And I think that also makes competition so much easier, because if I lose, but no, it was everything that I have, I can take that. I can take a loss as long as I know that I competed and it was everything that I have. And the opposite, I also didn't want to just beat somebody, but know that I could have done something more, because then I felt disappointed and like, no, I left something on the table today.
I think there's, it's so when you're talking, it's like bringing me back. And I've realized that that's not how we train now. It's certainly not how I trained probably ever, but it's like I'm more around the everyday athlete now than I was then. And you sort of, I think it was a little bit of it flies in the face of the way that when you read about performance, exercise, and training now, this is not what they suggest. Like, it's not that. It's about, if you're going to train to try to PR a long distance run, you're only working out like one hard interval session a week. All the others are tempos or long distance. And I just, hearing you say that, it's like, that's not what we did at all. Like, we threw down every day. And what you said is like, I'm going to give everything and trust that I'm going to recover. And I think that maybe one of the differences that allowed you to do that is how much when we say 100%, it wasn't just 100% effort once you walked into the gym, which it certainly was. It was 100% like all encompassing. Like, you weighed and measured every single thing that you ate for years and years. And that includes, that's not like 5 days a week. That was 7 days a week. That wasn't 50 weeks a year. That was 52 weeks. It was when you went out to eat at every restaurant, you brought the food with you. Like, we would sit down, she wouldn't order. She would pull out her Tupperware and eat the stuff that every night was like the right amount of sleep and all the recovery. Just to kind of like paint the picture of what the 100% looked like on a daily. I would go and I would work out in the morning. I would usually train at the 6:30 class, and then I would coach the 7:30 or the 8:30 class. When I was done with that, Heather would drive. Katrin didn't have a car, so Heather would come and take the 8:30 class that I would coach, and she would drive Katrin there. While I was coaching class, Katrin would do an hour-long warm-up. We called them Katrin warm-ups. That's most people's training day. Most people's training day is an hour. Katrin spent an hour getting her body and her mind ready for the training session. Then we would train for about 3 hours in the morning. She would take a lunch break, which was already prepared. By the way, while I was coaching class and she was home at home with Heather would be getting the kids ready for school, and Katrin would be making herself breakfast and lunch. And probably 2, maybe 3 times a week, she would set off the fire alarm.
It's true. 100% true.
100% true. We had like pans would be burnt completely, like
everything.
Melted on
So Brooks like loves my cooking, like everything. He's like, oh my God, babe, I'm like so thankful for this. Like, you're such a great chef. And I'm always like just skipping over the part of like, yeah, he doesn't know.
Yeah, I'm a natural.
Yeah, it just came naturally.
Meanwhile, there was 6 years of melting pots in the John's kitchens.
Fire alarms going off.
Fire alarms. Anyway, so it would start off before the gym. It would start off with meal prep. So it'd be like 2 hours of meal prep every day. Yeah. Then an hour she would do breath work and meditation before she would go into foam rolling for 20 to 30 minutes. Then we get into this big, long, beefy, Katrin warm-ups. Very big, long, beefy, anaerobic, basically like EMOM 30s to, it was basically like an EMOM 25 to 40 of just kind of like move, but it was like everyone else's workouts. Yeah, kettlebell swings, burpees, bikes, run. Then we would get into a 2-3 hour training session. Then you'd have your lunch, take a short break, and we go into another 3 hour training session. And then I would go and do work. And Katrin, we had these lazy boys, would sit in a lazy boy, Normatec, start her recovery process. Normatec's those like air compression bags that you put on your legs. Compression boots. And every day, compression boot, Theragun, more foam rolling, more stretching, go see chiro or massage. And then she would also sit and she would read. And this is a big understatement. Like, she would read about sports psychology for an hour while she waited for me to be done with work to drive her home. And then it was a meal at the dinner table. And, you know, we were at the dinner table, we'd just be talking about sports psychology with the family. That's all we talked about.
I love that I skipped about everything else outside of the gym, but it is so true. And right? I think it is also, I think that's a huge part of what people don't understand about being a professional athlete. You know, you hear people say like, oh yeah, like, oh, if I had more time to be in the gym, yeah, I'd also be one or whatever. And it's like, okay, it's not just that simple, because it doesn't turn off when you leave the gym. And it's one of those things that like, it really is a 24/7 job, because I have to make sure that I get in enough sleep. And that's 8 hours at a minimum, it depending on how hard the training day is. Sometimes you might need 10 hours. It is everything that you eat. It's eating clean so that you're not inflamed, but it's also making sure that you're getting in enough fuel and calories so that you can recover. It's the body work. It's your headspace and your mind frame that you're in. And one of the things when Ben said I started reading, the start of 2015 was actually 2014, I think, was when I started reading. And I did a lot of sports psychology, and also something that really, I read a lot of it, and Ben always used to show me a lot of just videos, but it's either just autobiographies or just real life examples. And I feel like stories move the world, and they certainly move me, because if I've ever seen it happen before, Tom Brady being, I don't know how many points down at the halftime at the Super Bowl. And he's like, oh, this is only going to make for a greater story. This is just going to be a better story. And it was true. And so knowing that it was true, when we got to the games and it wasn't the start that we wanted, you're like, great. It's only going to make for a better story. And I always believed it. And it showed. And it didn't always pan out. You take 2019, and it was me or Jamie on the podium and I took fourth, and it's disappointing. But I always fought right until the last event. You know, there was always that chance. And sometimes you do take the better of the two. And that's also something that I'm very proud of in my career. I don't know how it felt like being bad all the time, but I am a bit of like a risk taker. And sometimes it like pans off and sometimes it doesn't. But I don't regret it. Like, I never regret trying. You know, sometimes you take a shot at something and maybe you die midway through and it's not so great. But sometimes you do and you have a breakthrough. And I think the underlying thing is also like, you have to know when to take risks, and you have to be able to back up those risks. You can't just say, I'm going to risk it. I'm going to chase her and see if I can hold on. You have to be able to back it up with your running fitness, and you have to be able to have the skill set behind that. But taking calculated, educated risks, and we would always discuss that, and we discussed that in training of when to do that, and being composed so that you can make those decisions is something that I will never regret. It's something that I think I'd rather regret not trying, not going for things.
We're brought to you by Element, the electrolyte drink mix that supports your health with zero sugar, zero artificial ingredients, and all the essential minerals your body needs. Head to drinkelement.com/excellence to get your free Element sample pack. You just got to cover shipping. You know, achieving the kind of mindset we talk about here on the show starts with taking care of your foundation, and proper hydration is absolutely crucial. Element delivers the perfect ratio of sodium, potassium, and magnesium that your body needs, especially if you're training hard, following a low-carb diet, or practicing some intermittent fasting. And their brand new lemonade salt flavor is absolutely incredible. It's like a burst of summer in your water bottle. It is lovely. What we love about Element is that they're focused on real science-backed nutrition, no fillers, no junk, just what your body needs to perform at its best. Get your free Element sample pack and learn more about Element at drinkelement.com/excellence. You just got to cover shipping for that Element sample pack, and do make sure you check out Lemonade Salt. This episode is brought to you by Momentous, the supplement company trusted by elite athletes and health-conscious individuals who refuse to compromise on quality. Visit livemomentous.com. Use the code excellence for 35% off your first subscription to the Momentous 3, the foundation for optimal performance. When we discuss the 5 factors of health in our framework here on the show, training and nutrition are absolutely crucial, and that's where Momentous can help. The Momentous 3 combines their premium whey protein, creatine, and omega-3s to create a daily protocol that supports both physical and mental performance. Their whey protein is sourced from grass-fed European dairy. Their creatine is the pure monohydrate form backed by research, and their omega-3s deliver a potent 1,600 milligrams of EPA and DHA without any fishy aftertaste. Every product is third-party tested and certified by either NSF Sports or Informed Sport, because when it comes to what you put in your body, purity and quality matter. Go to livemomentous.com. Use the code excellence for 35% off your first subscription to the Momentous 3. That's livemomentous.com.
One of the things, I've worked with a lot of athletes, and there's a couple of things that I think are really special about Kat. One, I think, is probably the most obvious, and then I'll talk about the second one. But the first one is, and you just mentioned it, that's what kind of like spurred this, is she won't take this the wrong way, so don't worry. She's not very talented.
No, I'll be the first one to say that. I don't think I was ever the best athlete.
I think that she's good on her hands.
Thank you.
Like, she's good on her hands. That's about it.
You know,
yeah. She has good
That's
overhead stability. That's what it is. She has good balance upside down, and she has good overhead mobility and stability. Besides that, she's like a ball. She's like a ball of clay. But you were able to mold that clay into almost anything because of your willingness to just grind and work. Which gets into the second one, which is I have never, ever worked with somebody that enjoyed the process or the work more. I have a friend who's a really high-level basketball coach and high school basketball. And I'll just call him out. It's Alex Gallagher, and he's actually Heather's ex-husband. and he's phenomenal. Kat's met him a bunch of times, and he has this saying, which I just love, which is at the end of the season, I want a locker room full of crying girls. Not because we won or lost, but because we don't get to come back to practice the next day. That's Katrin. Like, she just, like, at the end, she just wanted to work and do the thing. And she found so much fulfillment and joy in that journey. That was super cool. And that's why, you know, I dubbed her the sled dog, was because her hardest days, her hardest moments are when she's not working. And sled dogs, when they're, you know, chained up outside the yard, are howling. You know, Katrin actually owns a sled dog now. But that's who she was. She was like, just wanted to work and wanted to work and wanted to work. And holy crap, like, as a coach, what you want more than anything is somebody that you have to pull the reins back on instead of crack the whip, right? She's the one that was going to go and overwork unless you pulled her back. And that's such a amazing thing to be a part of and to watch happen, because it is this, not like the Muhammad Ali thing of like, I hated training every single day, but I did it for the glory of being a champion. For Kat, it was like, you flipped it. It was like, I loved the everyday, and holy crap, that turned into me being a champion. Like, that was cool. That was like such a cool thing that you were able to bring not only a pure passion, joy to it, but the other third thing about it was the lack of, maybe except for like muscle ups, legless rope climbs, and swimming, there was like, there was like no judgment ever. There was no judgment ever about anything. It was just like, let's go do it. Let's go do it. Let's go do it. Like, it was always like, against anyone, with anyone. It didn't matter if we won or lost. I just want to like go and pour everything I have into this. That, if anyone has the opportunity to be around people like that, it is so inspiring, and you get to see people in flow a lot. And that's a really unique thing. Not unique in terms of that it's reserved for the few. It's unique that you get to see it so frequently. And it was really cool to be a part of that.
Also, just to like, thank you for all of that, but also to say that was the environment too. You know, I got to come in and be coached by you every day. I got to come in to see Tiffany. I got to train with our team that we had at the time. I mean, it varied from year to year, but that all made it so I could show up like that. I don't like training alone, you know? You put me...
I was actually going to ask that about that, because you've had the opportunity to train so many different ways, right? From training with like me, with a bunch of like other high fitness people, like our team.
Yeah.
You've also gotten a chance to train with like Annie and Matt as your training partners, like the best in the world. If you were to go and recreate it, if you were going to do this again, and you could choose either, you know, train with elite level people like Katrin, Matt, and Annie, or would you train in the bigger group like we do with teams, or isolation like you are now? Like, how would you recreate it?
Yeah, isolation kills me. I'm gone. So I think if I got to choose one thing and I was to redo my whole career again, it would be coming in to train with you and our team. That is, and that's not to take away with, and Matt was a part of that team during certain times of the year.
Totally.
Cole's a part of that team. So there's very high level athletes, and Annie's my best friend in the world, but she also be the first one to say she doesn't want to train with me every day of the year.
Right.
You know,
so training with the super high people is maybe leads to a little bit of burnout, but like training with like our team, our gym team, is that what you're saying?
I think I could honestly, I was an ebb and flow.
Like the Tories.
Yeah, Tori, but also I could do, as long as you were coaching, let's just take like our games training camps. Like those are some of my favorite memories ever.
Yeah.
You know, and you take it was with Cole and with Brooke, and there was a summer that just a lot of weren't even your athletes came in and trained with us. I think me getting in to train with you every day and you seeing me, you would always make adjustments on the fly, and you always knew the right thing to say to shift my mindset. You know, so let's say it's a legless or it's a muscle up, and I would start, for some reason I couldn't, this is honestly like, I think I have like a psychological something with it. I couldn't breathe, and I would like, I'd panic, I couldn't breathe, and if I'm not breathing, like I can't do the movements.
You
like
also say like you thought maybe like you drowned in a former life.
Oh yeah, and I feel like I got over my swimming.
Yeah, that's
but
awesome.
I do you remember that? And you're like, what
Yeah.
are you talking? And I was like, no, like I think so, because I would just panic when I went into water. I feel like I'm proud of where my swimming got. You know what regrets I have in my career? It's my muscle ups and legless rope climbs. I can still fully say like I think I did do well my last year. I had like a top 10 event. I beat Annie in it, and she was like, what the heck? And I'm like, yep, first one muscle ups. But it was my greatest challenge, one of my greatest challenges, and I never could somehow figure it out, even though I look at other people and I'm like, it's really not that complicated. For some reason it is for me. But even in those moments, you could always shift that for me. You could always tell me, you know, like it doesn't, if you fail, you fail. And then we know that you went up too soon. Try again. Like, it's not life or death. This is a learning experience. And I think you were always able to just like bring me back down to earth on that. And then I was able to go I rarely ever remember a bad session. There were there were tough things and bad things in a session, but we were always able to, if I ended on a bad note, we would talk about it and we would flip it, and it somehow got me excited to work on it again the next day because I wanted to change that outcome. If we had a great day, we talked about it. And so I feel like we always, and it's a weird way to say it, but we always had good days. Regardless of what happened, we always made it good days. And I think that was the magic. And then I love training with the team. So I think that would be like, if I recreated it again, that's what I would do. That's what I would do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we did a lot of, I think people might be surprised about how much, because you just said it, this kind of like changing on the fly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It was, like we had a game plan, but I would say 80% was adapting on the fly. You know, I had an idea every day and every week what we wanted to do.
I think you had the bones.
The big macro.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The structure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then everything was based off of kind of like the adjustments. That's the advantage of being in person, right? That's what you can't do remotely or with a big group.
That brings it also back to never having a bad day. I would say, like, me by myself, if you just give me programming and I'm in the garage, and this is me in school, this is just me in life, I don't like changing. I really don't like changing things.
Right.
And let's say he wrote a programming that was, 5x5 deadlifts going into a Metcon of Diane and, I don't know, odds and heavy squats at the end. But I can't, my back is really hurting that day. I feel like I would either fight through it or I can't do it. And then I feel like I had a bad day and I failed. Versus in person, I come in, the first thing you'd always ask me is, how are you feeling? And be like, good, great, my back is hurting, and then he would build out from that. And so it would never make me feel like I had a bad day or I failed or I missed out. It was just adjusted. And then he would make that mental note of like, she hasn't deadlifted this week. We'll see how she is on Thursday, And then I'll just get that later in the week. And so I think those adjustments really helped me like maximize what we were going to do overall, and also keep me more sane and knowing that I very much trust in my coach and I trust in Ben and what he's saying. And so if he tells me it's okay, I'm like, it's okay. I don't need to freak out about it. It's not me making the decision to not do it. And we're not skipping it. We're just moving it.
Trust after it is earned, and in the beginning, and Hinshaw used to always say this about Kat as well, is like, He'd be like, I like it when they ask a lot of questions, like, because Kat would always want to know like the whys behind it. You know,
Oh yeah,
exactly.
If Ben did switch again, like I think this is just my personality
why are we doing
too.
that? Yeah.
He switched, and I'd be like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
And that's what it's really good. It's that idea of just like doing what you can with what you got.
Yeah.
Let's maximize today. Do you remember, this was the thing we did every single year, and I was really into this, defining success. Do you remember what your definition of success was?
Yeah.
What is it?
It was knowing that I had done the best of my abilities with what I had in that time. Is that it?
Yeah. And we
I
used to
remember
always,
the exact one.
yeah, it was the thing we used to say to each other, which I always used to kind of like whisper to you when it would get hard in the training session, was be like, do it for the girl in the mirror, right? It was that idea of like being able to look at yourself and just know that you gave everything you had in that moment. And it didn't matter how it shook out. If we did everything that we could in that moment, that's success. And you stack those days on top of each other. Yeah,
much.
We still have, which is very similar to, we still have hanging up in our garage that etched sign that it's your grandmother's.
One step at a time.
Exactly. Walk like a champion. Yeah.
Walk like a champion. One step, one foot in front of the other. Do your best with that one step, and we'll do it together.
I love that. Yeah. That's very much what kind of the whole thing was built upon. This, did you have any lesson? I'm curious about this. Any lessons learned? Because there was one year that we kind of like shifted things a little bit, which was we came out of the games and we were like, we're going to get strong. And we did Smoloff. And you, as an athlete, were somebody that like, if you trained it, you got better. So Kat, when she came in, was a gymnast, wasn't a very good runner. We were like, let's get good at running. She became one of the best runners at the games, like phenomenal. She was pretty good at gymnastics and she was pretty strong as a young athlete, but worked on her conditioning, became the best conditioned athlete at the games. And you combine that and she would like win events like DT because she was really good at cycling barbells, but never had the top end strength minus maybe snatching. We did Smoloff one year because we were like, let's get effing strong. And we didn't do anything for like, I would say it's probably like 8 to 10 weeks.
I was
Does that sound right?
A couple months. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you got really strong. You went from like a 275 back squat to plus 300. We added like 25 or 30 pounds.
Yeah. I think you
actually got like a 305.
Or a 315, but I think I was doing it low bar. So I probably say it was,
So anyway, added like 20, 30, 40 pounds onto a well-trained athlete squat in a 2-week period.
I also put on some weight.
I'm sorry, not 2-month period. Yeah. So, but that's my kind of thing is like, when you look back on that, what is your takeaway from that? What do you say about it?
Okay. So my takeaway, I don't think it panned out because I never was able to bank points for that. I just was never able to translate. I was never winning the pure strength events. And our bread and butter was that we could win events. And they had nothing to do with heavy weights. I could cycle moderate weights very well and light weights and well conditioned. And so if it was a bike, if it was a run, if it was long enough, if it was weird enough, like I can win those events. And that's where we would get our points from. And there's so little. And once you trickle down the leaderboard, it's exponential. So from taking almost no points to taking some points wasn't really a huge bang for our buck.
Yeah.
And so during that season, I don't think it didn't translate that well, but it's one of those, it's another thing that I also, what if we never had tried? Mm-hmm. That I would regret that. That would be something that like, oh, we didn't even try. So I love that we went for it. I think I probably don't have physically the amount of fast twitch fibers to be the best in the sport at high end strength.
Also had a broken back. Yep.
Thank you. Yeah. Forget about that one.
Yeah.
That was a tough.
That
was probably one of my biggest challenges in my career. Yeah, it was my back.
Yeah.
So again, it's just one of those things. I don't regret doing it. I don't think it translated hugely over into the games or success for us. But I also, and that's another thing that like I am very proud of, is that I was willing to try anything. You want to try small lift? I'm willing to try it, and I'm willing to run with it, and like, let's go and see what happens. And it's just part of being curious, and it's kind of fun to just like, let's see what happens. Totally. But actually with some athletes, it takes a very, very special, I'm going to say there's only a few in a generation that can do it all. Like CrossFit is such an incredible sport. And for the fact that it is everything, you know, you can't just be like small and tiny and great at gymnastics, and you can't just be big and explosive and great with weights. You have to be able to kind of marry them all, and you have to be able to do a little bit of everything. But very few people are top of the class in everything. Like very few people can take top 10 in everything. And I think for most athletes, I would say, this is a broad stroke, I would say it's a dangerous game to try to get good at all of them. So let's say you're top of the game in conditioning and gymnastics and not with strength and explosiveness, and you spend all year working on that. Now you get to the games and you don't get your 100 points or your 95 points in these two, and you just get extra 5 points here, but you drop down 25 points in these, you know? So it is a dangerous game to play, but that's how you get the most dominant athletes in the world, is by being able to do all of those. Which is, I think extremely
my takeaways, was the same thing. I think you said it exactly the way I would as well. Like I don't regret not trying it, because if we are able to do that, then you are the well-rounded, right? You are the generational. You are the 8 times game winner, right? So let's go for that. But I think what we found is with your makeup, as we got to that 305, when we started not putting all of that attention to it, it came back to it didn't come back to where it was, but it didn't hang out at that upper echelon of the girls' weights.
I didn't keep it.
The top girls athletes are doing 330, top 5 gets you, top 315 gets you top 5, over 300 keeps you in the top 10. You did slide back to that 285, 290. So
That's
ended up
kind of where I hovered
right.
The whole
So
career, yeah.
Yeah, it's like I don't regret trying it, because if it worked, it would have been like amazing.
Yes.
But I agree that it didn't pan out and stick and hold. So it wasn't this like game changing thing that we kind of hoped it could have been. Yeah.
We're brought to you by More Hair Naturally, a company that understands that true excellence starts with showing up as your most confident self. Head to morehairnaturally.com. Use the code EXCELLENCE10 for 10% off your first order. Look, chasing excellence isn't just about what you do in the gym or how disciplined your morning routine is. It's also about how you show up in the world. For a lot of folks, hair loss chips away at that. Slowly and silently, it can mess with how you see yourself. That's where More Hair Naturally comes in with their science-backed, drug-free approach. Using powerful natural ingredients like stem cells, amino acids, peptide complexes, and probiotics, they're helping people take back control of their hair growth journey. No weird drugs, side effects, or lifetime guarantees, just real results. Their mission to help you elevate your self-confidence, reclaim your presence, and get back to being unshakable in everything you do. Visit morehairnaturally.com. Use the code EXCELLENCE10 for 10% off your first order, and stop letting something like hair loss stop your momentum. We're brought to you by BetterHelp, the world's largest online therapy platform that's helping break down barriers to mental health support, especially for men. Visit betterhelp.com/excellence to get 10% off your first month. You know, as men, we often feel this immense pressure to have it all figured out, to be the strong one, to push through challenges all by ourselves. But here's something that might surprise you. Over 6 million men in the United States deal with depression every year, and many never seek help because of outdated stigmas. Just like we talk about training being essential for physical strength, working with a therapist is about building mental strength and resilience. BetterHelp makes this process simple with over 35,000 licensed therapists who understand the unique challenges men face. You can connect with a therapist on your terms in your own space, making it as convenient as any other part of your daily routine. Real strength isn't about carrying everything alone. It's about having the courage to reach out when you need support. Remember, we're all better with help. Visit betterhelp.com/excellence and get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/excellence.
Talk to me about hard things in general, like the mindset that you have to do this sport, which is so hard and uncomfortable. It's like there's very few sports that I think there are sports that require more pain tolerance, like MMA or rugby. But in terms of uncomfortable, I don't know if there's many other sports like crew, certainly rowing 2K all the time is probably one of those, but even that, maybe not in training sessions. So you were phenomenal at like being comfortable, being uncomfortable. How has that translated, if at all, to anything else?
I honestly just think it's perspective, because it really is just discomfort, you know? And you're so right with like, there are sports when I never got to see Brooks play on the ice, but he takes pucks to the face and he gets slammed in between a player and the glass and breaks a collarbone and like the things that he's been through and the things I'm like, oh, that must hurt. He's like, never mind, that hurt. Yeah. We are uncomfortable. And I think very early on, I remember you talking to us about the difference between pain and discomfort, you know? And honestly, I think very early on too, unfortunately, I did have real pain, like losing my grandma. And that's why I was in Boston. I was with the Bergeron. So I think that is something that when you have perspective, that's what pain is. That's what hurts. You can't change that. And knowing that what we do in the gym is discomfort, and it will take an end. It will be over. I know that last minute on the Echo bike seems forever to count, and you're so uncomfortable and it really hurts, but that minute will pass whether you go as hard as you can or if you stop and get off that Echo bike. And then another point to that too is also knowing that this is where I want to be. If I'm not hurting, if I'm not uncomfortable in this position, I'm not going hard enough. I need to push, because now I can go out and do my track workout and I can be comfortable, but I'm not going to get better. And I need to, and I don't know the whole science behind this, but I need to show my body that I'm doing this, I'm creating this stimulus so that my body learns how to breathe under that speed, learns how to clear the lactic under that speed, learns just the mechanics and the rhythm of it all. And I will come back and become better. And so I think it's both. I think it's just perspective of this discomfort, it'll be over. And then B, knowing that this discomfort is exactly why you're doing this. It hurts. Great. That's what you're doing.
That's so good. Yeah. Like most people fear that spot and try to avoid it. You're like seeking it out and trying to get there. You're like waiting until you get to the spot of real discomfort, and then you're like, okay, I got it. Now it's into that perspective, like, now's where I start to make adaptations. Now's like, thank God I finally got here, where everyone's like, oh no, like, shock. We used to talk a lot about what's the story going on in your head, what are you saying to yourself, and I used to love, and I use it to this day, what you used to say to yourself all the time, which is, the time is gonna pass either way. Like, you're doing this workout, you're doing this set, the time is going to pass anyway. Like, why do you want to sit and wallow and suffer more than you're going to anyway? Just like, accept it. Like, this is where I'm going to be for a little while. Okay. Now the time's going to pass. And I use that now to this day when I'm like in a hard training session. I'm like, time's going to pass. Like, and at the end, it's like you get to look back and like, that's the difference. Once the time's over and you look back, are you going to be proud of the way you walked through that? Or are you going to go, gosh, I wish I wasn't such a woe is me in the middle of it?
Yeah, like it's over. Take the 20-minute bike test. Like either I can, sit there and do it for 20 minutes, or I can really make a push at it, know that I'll be proud after, and those 20 minutes will also pass. Like both things can, both
It's
things
20
are
minutes.
true. It's
Guess
just
what?
a choice. It'll
You're
pass.
going to be on here for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So either accept it and be here or not. But guess what? Either which way, the time's going. I love that.
I love that you still use it.
Do you have other, when you look back on training, workouts, sessions, obviously the Cape was the magic spot. Do you have like any certain workouts that you like, that like kind of like are up on the top shelf of like training sessions?
For like best ones or like most learned?
Yeah, you answer that how you want to.
Well, talking about, just to give some clarity, I'll kind of give a little bit of everything. But there was a workout on the Cape every single year. And I think this one was called Zeus, remember?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Totally, of course. Yeah.
I just remembered that one I'm not always like the greatest at communicating. I know what I'm feeling and thinking. I can't always put it into words. And so very often throughout the season, we might do a conditioning workout and I would just tell Ben, like, I'm not ready. I'm not fit enough. I'm not this. And I'd be like, okay, we're still working. We still have this many weeks. Like, he's like, what can happen if we keep doing this or we add in this or whatever. And that's one of those workouts I remember. And there was always a point in every summer that we'd finish a workout. It was like, I'm ready. Yeah. And I always felt like it was the magic of the Cape. And it wasn't that ready can't mean like, oh, I'm ready to, you never know what place you're going to take. I don't know how anybody else is going to show up. It was just that I knew that I felt how I wanted to feel and knew that I could feel. And it's the greatest feeling, because it's not that I don't ever feel tired. It's just that I could keep working so much while I was tired. It was this amazing feeling. It was like this insane fitness that we'd built all year, and it kind of all accumulated like right at the right time before the games. And you kind of sit there, I was like, oh, I'm ready. Like I trusted that I could fight through anything. Like no matter how tired I was, I could always keep going, both physically and mentally. So that's definitely one that I feel like really like encompasses like everything that we kind of talked about and how we approach training. There was one day in the back room we were doing, it was echo bike, hang power clean, and burpees. And it was like 5 rounds for time or something. And I smashed that workout. And, you were like, good job. And I was like, no, it wasn't. And you're like, no, good job. And I was like, I could have gone faster. He goes, you smashed that. And I go, I know, I still could have gone faster. I think that was also a huge thing of like, and I there's probably a line too where you're like too hard on yourself, but that was just honesty. And I knew, I was just going fast enough, and I was going fast, but I knew, I was like, no, I could have pushed harder. Like I could have gotten better than I did that day.
So that one's like a little bit of a reference. Yeah, it's kind of like a call out to, it's not about the scoreboard, it's about my potential. And even if I smash something on the scoreboard, if there's still room for me to get better, like that's not the top. Like I might have smashed it. I might have a world record in this, but I have more to give in that.
I think that comes back to confidence and like how the type of confidence that we wanted to create. Because you can create false confidence with thinking that, you're going to go beat other people, or maybe you have been all summer long beating other athletes, but you don't know where your biggest competitors are, how hard they are training. And so I think comparing against others can create this false confidence versus I think comparing against yourself can create true confidence. And it isn't like I could never go in knowing that, you know, I'm going to beat X, Y, or Z. I just had to go in knowing that I could always do my best. And that was always within my control. And knowing that I had confidence in, I'm going to always go do my best. And also knowing that I have composure and the experience to handle when things don't go as planned and I have to make an adjustment. Like, those are things that I wanted to have confidence in, and created a great competitor ultimately when I was out there on the floor.
Yeah, that confidence comes from obviously putting in the work, but also that it feels so good, as you said, when you're peaking. And we used to like try to peak right before the games, and that's when we would do that Zeus workout. And just so people can follow along, Zeus is task, priority, fight, gone bad. So instead of like as many reps as you can in a minute, you do 30 reps of every station. Except when you get done with the 5 stations, you do 10 body weight back squats from the ground and then 30 push-ups. So you're adding in extra upper body pushing and this heavy load. It's a really good combination. And there would be these times where you're kind of like you don't know, because you're not benchmarking. You're not like, to the nature of our sport, you're not trying to peak before. So you don't kind of really know where you are. And then we would always do 2 workouts in the last 2 weeks before our taper, Zeus being one, and then the 7s was the other one. And we would always do the 7s.
Yes.
Yeah. And Katrin's 7s is holy crap. If you've ever done the 7s workout, Kat, you should. I wish that we had that on film.
Me too. Because I remember it just didn't stop. It was so fast.
Your 7s is like one of the more impressive thing I've ever seen. So anyone that's ever done the 7s workout, 7 rounds of 7 reps of 7 different movements. Normal human beings do the first round in like 3 minutes, the next round in like 4 or 5, and they kind of like hang out at like 4 or 5-ish minutes per round, like myself being a normal human being. So you end up kind of like that 28, 32 minutes. Katrin would do the whole workout in sub 14. She would hold under
sub 2s. Yeah.
Yeah, sold sub 2s per round. It took me 2 minutes to do the thrusters in round 2. That's in round 2. I have 5 more rounds to go.
Oh,
it's like, it's so those 2 things together was like, oh, we ready. That feeling, it was just so.
What like stands out in your mind? Like, what are workouts that come to your mind that you can remember?
So I like anything on the Echo Bike, because I just think the Echo Bike was so cool. Towards the end of the year, we started doing a little benchmarking of Echo Bike and GHD sit-ups.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool. Really terrible, nasty combination. That was a big one. And then the other ones I just loved were the outside the gyms, right? So running in the power lines and the trails with you on the Cape, swimming.
Oh my God.
Swimming in the open ocean. This is like, Katrin wasn't great in the water, but one year we put a lot of emphasis into open water swimming. And we had one training session with Cole, and we weren't planning on, this kind of speaks to like our training methodology in terms of like, you adapt on the fly. We weren't planning on swimming that day, but there was a tropical storm.
So naturally, Ben wants us in the water.
So we went swimming that day, and we went to the beach with the biggest possible waves. And this is one of those times I was like, what have I done?
Have
I killed Katrin?
It was literally like where the waves and I can't even see Cole and Cole. And we're just
she disappear between these huge swells for like 25 seconds at a time. And I'm trying to run along the edge of the shore to get out towards where I told him to go to. But that one really sticks out, because when we got to the games that year, it was so cool, because that was the games that
was that 2016?
The biggest surprises, right?
Yeah.
That was get on a plane, we're going to the ranch, plane delayed on the flight back, all surprises. Be at the beach at 5 a.m. And we got to the beach, and it was like 15-foot swells. Yeah. It was like huge, and everyone's freaking out. And Katrin's like,
that was the best time I ever did.
Yeah, it's the best you've ever done a swim. So that one stuck out a ton. I love that one. I also love all Blue Hills stuff. Blue Hills is my favorite training sessions.
Same.
Yeah. That, and then like you said earlier, is the ones that started off as bad days, right? Lots of frustration. Why am I that ended up turning into like the quiet talks outside that we reframed into being our most impactful days. When I think about working with you, those are the things I think about, is like how we were able to just, everything was grounded on this thing of mindset. Just like, let's be the type of people that
Yeah. ... Yeah. Yeah. And
what about at the games? Did you have any events at the games that you like look back on and you're like, that was awesome?
Yeah, I think like the turning point, like just in our career, was definitely the rope climb event at the 2015 games. Because the same, I had a very, not only physical limitation, but psychological boundaries with legless. And we had never ever discussed it. And it honestly had never crossed my mind that we would win the games that year, or that I had never even like said it, or like, I don't think truly wanted it, but we were just so focused on literally just have be the best me. Just every time. Yeah. We did that every single time in training. And then when we got to the games, like there were no eyes on me. I didn't have any pressure or anything like that. And so it was kind of made it easy to just like, I'm just going to compete well. We were just going to compete well and be proud of what we did out there every single time. And suddenly, Angel, who is athlete control, comes and hands me the leader's jersey. And it's right before a legless rope climb event. And it was just 4 legless rope climbs. And it was like pig flip into legless rope climbs into handstand walking. And I just start bawling my eyes out immediately. I just freaked out because I was already nervous about the rope climbs, and now I was like, oh, like everybody's going to be watching me fail rope climbs. This is what I told myself. It wasn't that they're going to watch me be slow. I was like, they're going to watch me fail rope climbs. And I just start bawling. And so I'm like, where's Ben? I'm like, where's Ben? And I'm like freaking out about the leader's jersey and the rope climbs. And I remember you coming and you're like, okay. You're like, nope, that's great. Do the pig flips. And do you think you can get 1 rope climb? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, okay. He goes, great. So go and do the pig flips and 1 rope climb. And then when you've done that, I just want you to think like, when you're in training, how long do you normally think until you need to jump up? And when you feel like you're ready, go do another rope climb. I was like, okay, I can do that. I was like, yeah, I can do that. He goes, okay, that's all you need to do. Do 1 rope climb, and then when you're ready, try another one. And it just completely, I was like, I wasn't thinking about the leader's jersey or winning that event or people watching me fail. I was like, oh, I can go and do 1 rope climb. And the best part about that, though, is that I get out onto the field and I can like barely pig flip the thing. And I'm like, oh, I might not even get to the rope climbs. But we do end up finishing the pig flips. We get to the rope climb. I do 1, I do 2, I do 3. And by this point, I feel like I've won because I'm way further than we ever discussed. And we had done I also think this is I have a very a great workout memory. Like I can almost remember every what I held for how long in workouts. And we had just done this 10 rope climbs for time or something right before and I knew how long it took me to get up and down the rope. And I was like, I needed to, so I remember looking at the clock and there was about a minute left. And I was like, well, either I run out of time or, if I fail, I would have run out of time anyway if I would have waited longer. So I remember looking at the clock and just being like, I'm just going to try 1 and I'll just jump up with 30 seconds left. That'll give me enough time to get up. And I think we had to get down below the tape too to get it to count or something. And so I just remembered shaking it out and I didn't feel ready for that one. But I just looked at the clock and I was like, okay, I need to jump up to get it in time, to have a chance. And I jump up and I get it. I get that 4th rope climb. Bear in mind, I've not finished the workout. The workout's still the handstand walking. And I come down and I knew my judge at the time and a time captain, whatever. And I was like, Denise, I won. And she just goes, she literally thought I was delirious or too hot or something. And she was so confused. And I was like, Denise, I won. I need a reaction from her. And she just goes, sweetie, those girls on the finish line, those won. And I like, nothing she said fazed me. I just go, Denise, I won. I just gave her a hug. And then and I remember Ben and O'Keefe sitting in the stands. We were walking through, and I am so happy. I was like so happy because that was all I could do. And I took that risk at the end, and it paid off. So it was even better than I thought I could have done in that workout. And it was truly like everything that we could have gone out of it. And so that was a huge shift, I think, a define in our career, and also kind of just define what we had been working on and the headspace that we came there into. Because you can always believe that you're doing the right thing. And there I was like, oh no, like this is the mindset that I need to have every single time I go out in the field. So what did I take in that workout? 15th?
I think it's 15th. I was going to say 15th. Yep.
Yeah, I was so proud. I was so proud of that. And that's just one of those things that, like, you know, whether I took first, or for me, first was 15th in that workout, and that was my win.
Yeah. So focused on what's your, not using the external to determine how you feel internally. It's just truly, it's a great testament to, can I perform my best?
Yeah, I think that's a good place to wrap up. Thank you so much for joining us, Katrin.
Yeah, likewise. It's been so fun.
Thank you very much for tuning into the show. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you're listening or watching so you do not miss another episode. For more frameworks and daily practices, visit chasingexcellence.email. And don't forget to tap the link in the show notes for today's full listener guide, where we break down the key ideas and provide actionable steps to help you put them into practice. Until next time, keep building health, finding freedom, and living with your heart on fire.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Sign up for Greenlight today at greenlight.com/podcast.